He never believed in miracles until the night he saw a blinding light fall from the sky and crash into the forest. The evening had been calm and ordinary, the kind of night where the air is heavy with silence, and the distant hum of insects is the only sound. He had been walking home after a long day, his thoughts wandering in the stillness when the sudden flash ripped across the sky. At first, he thought it was lightning, but the heavens remained clear without a cloud in sight. The light was too bright, too strange, and it cut downward like a spear plunging into the trees in the distances. Heart raced as he stopped in his tracks, staring at the horizon where the glow pulsed like a wounded star. He felt fear crawl across his skin, but there was also an unshakable pull, urging him to move closer. Curiosity battled with common sense, yet his legs carried him forward, as if a force, unseen, was guiding him into the unknown. The silence of the night was broken by faint crackling sounds, like electricity sparking in the dark, and the faint smell of burning wood drifted through the air. The deeper he went into the forest, the more the light flickered through the trees, casting long shadows that swayed unnaturally. His imagination tried to convince him it was a fallen aircraft or some trick of the atmosphere, but deep inside he knew this was something else entirely. The ground beneath his feet bore fresh scorch marks. Leaves had curled at the edges, blackened as though touched by fire, yet the glow that led him forward did not burn. It shimmered with a strange cold brilliance. Every step sent his pulse higher, his breath shallow as he moved past broken branches that seemed pushed aside by something large crashing through his. Thoughts swirled. What if it was dangerous? What if he never returned home tonight? Yet still he pressed on, drawn to the place where the light had struck. The forest grew darker around him. But ahead the glow painted the clearing in hues of silver and pale blue, as though the moon itself had descended. Finally he broke through the last line of trees and froze in awe. Before him lay a scene beyond his comprehension. The earth was torn apart in a wide circle, dirt and stone, thrown outward as if an unseen hand had scooped the ground. A metallic scent filled the air, mixed with something sweet, almost like ozone and honey. At the center of it all lay the source of the light, a figure curled upon the ground, trembling, its body radiating that unearthly glow. He could barely breathe as he realized it was not human. The form was slender and long, its skin, almost translucent, veins glowing faintly like rivers of starlight flowing beneath its surface. Its chest rose and fell in shallow breaths, each movement weaker than the last. It looked fragile and wounded, its arm bent unnaturally, its side stained with something that shimmered like liquid silver. For a moment fear gripped him so tightly that he considered turning back, but as his eyes met the faint glow of the creature's gaze, something inside him shifted. The fear melted into a strange compassion, an instinct older than reason. He did not know why, but he felt this being was not a threat, but instead a soul crying out for help. So instead of running, he took a single step forward and then another, the weight of the unknown heavy upon him, yet the call to act even heavier. He whispered softly, though he knew the creature could not understand, "You are not alone." As he moved closer he found a wounded being, unlike anything he had ever seen, lying helpless on the ground. His first instinct was to step back, to put distance between himself and the unknown, because his mind screamed of danger, but something deeper whispered, "Stay." The glow from the alien was soft and pulsing like the beat of a living star, and even though the sight should have filled him with terror, there was a strange calm in the air that drew him closer. The creature was sprawled in the dirt, its limbs long and delicate like they had been shaped by another kind of world. The skin was pale, but not pale like a human. It was translucent and alive, with veins that shone in colors, shifting between blue and green, as though light itself flowed through the body. Its chest rose weakly, each breath sounding like a faint whistle of wind, its movements strained as if every second was a battle to remain alive. He crouched down, his hands trembling, unsure if touching it would harm or help. The ground was still warm from the impact, and the smell of burning wood filled the clearing, but all he could see was the pain in the creature before him. He wanted to run, and yet leaving it here to die felt impossible, even cruel, so he forced himself to stay. Bending closer to study the wounds along its side, the shimmering liquid that leaked from its body was thick like molten silver, and every drop glistened in the dim light of the forest. He whispered words that made no sense to the situation, but came naturally. "You are going to be all right. I will not leave you." Though he doubted the being could understand, his voice seemed to calm him more than silence did. The alien opened its eyes for the briefest moment, revealing orbs larger than any human eyes, and within them swirled galaxies of color that left him breathless. The gaze was heavy with pain, but also with awareness, as if it could see into the very core of his soul. He reached for his backpack, fumbling with the zipper, his hands shaking. He had little inside, only a half-filled bottle of water and a folded jacket, but it was all he could offer. He placed the jacket gently beneath the alien's head, hoping to lift it from the rough earth, and held the bottle near its mouth. He had no idea if this being could drink water, but he tipped the bottle slowly, letting only a drop touch its lips. The alien coughed softly, a sound strange and hollow, yet after a moment it swallowed and its breathing steadied slightly. The man felt his fear fading, replaced by something he could not name: compassion, duty, destiny, perhaps all mixed into one. This was no ordinary night and no ordinary encounter. He was meant to be here at this precise moment, and he knew it deep in his chest. Even though the stars above were silent, he felt as though unseen eyes watched the clearing, waiting to see what choice he would make. So he stayed on his knees beside the wounded alien, the forest quiet around them, his heart pounding louder than the night sounds. He pressed his hand gently against the alien's trembling arm, hoping his touch conveyed the intent he could not put into words. "I am here, I will help you, you are not alone." The alien looked terrifying and fragile at the same time, its skin glowing faintly as though life itself was slipping away. The man stared, unable to decide if this was a vision or reality, his mind running wild with explanations. Perhaps he had fallen asleep, perhaps he was dreaming, yet the weight of the moment pressed too heavily against his chest for it to be illusion. The being before him was dying, and he felt certain that he had stumbled into something larger than his own life. He examined the creature more closely, trying to understand its injuries. One of its arms was twisted unnaturally, the joint bent at an angle that no limb should endure along its side. The glowing liquid continued to flow in slow rivulets, soaking into the soil beneath them. The glow dimmed each time the creature exhaled, as though its very essence was fading with every breath. He could not comprehend what it was made of. It seemed part flesh, part light, and wholly alien. The eyes opened again, and this time remained fixed upon him. They were enormous orbs like windows to the heavens. Inside them swirled colors that shifted with every blink. He felt the strange sensation that it was not only looking at him, but through him, searching his soul, measuring the depth of his intent. A tremor of fear passed through him, but he did not look away. Something in those eyes demanded his presence, demanded courage he had never known before. He whispered again, his voice unsteady, "I do not know how to help you, but I will try." The alien blinked slowly, and a faint sound escaped its throat, a vibration that resonated in the air more like music than speech. He froze, wondering if this was language or simply the sound of pain. Either way, it stirred something inside him, a sense of connection, as if their two worlds touched in that fragile moment. His mind raced. Should he call someone? Should he bring others to this place? But even as the thought formed, he knew the answer: no one would believe him, and worse, they might harm the creature out of fear or greed. He was the only one here, and perhaps the only one this being could trust. If it had fallen before anyone else, perhaps its fate would have already been sealed. He tore a strip from his own shirt and pressed it gently against the wound, hoping to slow the flow of the strange glowing liquid. His hands shook as he worked, but determination pushed him forward. The alien winced, its body twitching in pain, but it did not resist. Instead, its gaze stayed fixed upon him, steady and unwavering, like it knew something he did not. The glow in its chest brightened faintly, as though the effort of survival was tied to the kindness being shown. The night grew colder, the forest pressing in around them. Yet in that clearing the man felt both fear and wonder mingled together. He had never believed such things could exist, yet here he was, kneeling beside a fragile being from beyond the stars. His thoughts circled endlessly, but one truth stood firm: he could not let it die, not like this, not while he still had breath to give on. So he pressed harder upon the wound, whispering words of comfort again, even though the alien could not understand. "Stay with me, you are not alone, I will not let go." He knelt down, and despite his fear he offered water and comfort, hoping somehow it would understand. The night around him felt alive, every sound amplified, every shadow stretched, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. He placed the bottle once more to the alien's lips and tilted it carefully, watching as the faintest trickle slid inside. The creature coughed softly, then swallowed, and for the first time its breathing steadied into a slow rhythm. Encouraged by the small response, he spoke gently, his words spilling out, though he knew they might mean nothing. "You are safe with me, I will not hurt you, you are going to make it." The alien's eyes flickered open, glowing faintly in the dim clearing, and it stared directly at him. The gaze carried no hostility, only exhaustion, and something he could not name, a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. He pulled the jacket tighter beneath the alien's body, trying to shield it from the cold. Earth, the glow beneath its skin flickered weakly, like a candle about to go out, and panic surged through him. He had no tools, no medicine, nothing that could truly heal a being like this yet. He refused to abandon it. His hands hovered above the wound, trembling, uncertain if touching it more would bring harm or hope. Still he pressed the cloth strip gently against the shimmering flow, and whispered, "Please, hold on." The forest was unnervingly silent, the usual rustle of creatures absent, as though every living thing had retreated from the presence of this stranger from the sky. The man felt the weight of solitude crushing him, yet within that silence there was also a strange peace. He realized he was no longer afraid of the alien itself. He was afraid of losing it, afraid that this extraordinary encounter would fade into death before its meaning could be revealed. The alien stirred slightly, its long fingers twitching before curling weakly around his wrist. The touch was cool, yet carried a faint vibration like the hum of distant energy. The contact sent a shock through him, not of pain but of connection, as if, in that single touch, something passed between them. Understanding beyond words, he froze, unable to move, his heart racing as he realized the creature was reaching for him, not pushing him away but holding on. He leaned closer, speaking again though his voice cracked. "I am here, I will help you, whatever it takes." The alien's grip loosened, but its eyes remained locked with his, shimmering with strange colors shifting like auroras. Across distant skies he felt as if those eyes saw not only his face but every memory, every fear, every hope he had ever carried. A sense of being known completely washed over him, leaving him both vulnerable and comforted. Minutes passed slowly, the glow from the alien pulsing faintly in rhythm with its shallow breaths. He continued to hold the cloth against its wound, whispering words he barely understood himself. Words meant more to reassure his own heart than to comfort the being before him. Yet, each time he spoke, the alien's breathing steadied as if the sound of kindness itself gave strength. He realized then that his choice to stay was not only about saving the alien, it was about saving himself from the kind of fear that kept men from compassion. He did not know what would come next, but he knew he could not turn away. Slowly, the alien began to recover, its eyes glowing with gratitude as if it recognized kindness beyond worlds. The man felt his own fear dissolve into wonder as he watched the glow shift and brighten, each flicker carrying more strength than the last. He could hardly believe that a simple act of water and comfort could bring such change. Yet before his eyes the creature was stabilizing the jacket beneath. Its body no longer sagged with weakness as heavily as before. Its chest rose with steadier rhythm, and its gaze grew sharper, more focused. The man leaned closer, speaking softly again. "You are going to make it. Stay with me. I promise you will not be alone." The alien blinked, and in that blink he thought he saw something he never expected: recognition. Not just of his presence, but of his intent, as though the creature knew exactly why he had stayed. The hand that had gripped his wrist twitched again, but this time it held more strength. The alien raised its fingers, slowly tracing them along the fabric of his sleeve, as if memorizing the sensation of human touch. The man felt a chill run down his spine, not from fear but from awe. This being was real, fragile and alive, and somehow reaching across an unimaginable distance of difference to connect with him in the simplest gesture. The glow beneath the alien's skin began to shift from pale blue to a warmer gold, as though the light within it was responding to something unseen. He could not understand the change, but he felt it deeply, like the warmth of a sunrise breaking the cold of night. The forest seemed to breathe again, the silence no longer heavy but filled with an unspoken expectancy, as if the trees themselves waited for what would happen next. The man brushed the sweat from his forehead and whispered again, though he was not sure why he kept speaking. "My name is Daniel. I do not know if you can hear me or know me, but I am here for you." The alien's eyes widened faintly, and then its lips moved in a way that made his breath stop. It was forming words, real words, not the strange music-like sound he had heard earlier, but syllables shaped in perfect clarity. He froze, his heart thundering as the alien whispered one phrase, weak but unmistakable: "Daniel." The sound of his own name echoed back at him, spoken in a voice that was soft, otherworldly, and filled with resonance. He stumbled backward in shock, staring at the being that now not only recognized his presence, but had spoken his very name. The alien blinked again, its gaze steady and unbroken, as if to say, "I know you." wave of disbelief and awe crashed over him. He could not explain how or why it knew his name, but in that moment he felt a truth sink into his heart. This was no accident, he was meant to be here, and this encounter was bound to him in ways he could not yet comprehend. He knelt again, gripping the alien's trembling hand, whispering, "I am listening. Whatever you need to say, I will hear it." And for the first time, the alien's lips curved faintly, not quite a smile, but a trace of peace as its voice grew stronger, preparing to speak again. Then, with a voice both soft and powerful, the alien spoke of a great teacher known across galaxies. The words did not come as ordinary speech, they seemed to echo inside the air and also within his mind, each syllable carrying weight and resonance that went beyond sound. Daniel felt the vibration through his bones, as if the truth of the message was being carved directly into his soul. First he doubted what he was hearing, thinking perhaps his fear and exhaustion were twisting reality, yet the alien's eyes remained fixed upon him, glowing brighter with every word. The being was no longer simply surviving, it was speaking deliberately, choosing to share something of deep importance. The forest seemed to fade around them, the night sounds distant, as though the entire world was listening. In silence, the alien's voice was gentle yet carried an authority beyond anything Daniel had known. It spoke of a teacher, a bringer of light, who had walked among many worlds. It said this teacher was known across galaxies by different names, in different tongues, but the essence was always the same: love, hope, sacrifice, and truth. The being paused as though searching for the right words, then spoke again. "The name you know is Jesus." Daniel's breath caught in his throat, his mind reeling at the sound of the familiar name spoken by a creature not of earth. He shook his head, struggling to process the enormity of what he was hearing. How could this being know Jesus? How could the message he had grown up with exist beyond the borders of his own world? Yet the sincerity in the alien's voice, and the unearthly glow in its eyes, left no room for doubt. He leaned forward, whispering barely above a breath, "You know him. How could you possibly know his name?" The alien blinked slowly, its lips parting once more. The voice that followed was not loud, yet it rang with undeniable truth. "The one you call Jesus is known to us all. He is the light that connects the stars, the shepherd who guides life wherever it exists." Daniel felt his heart pound harder than ever before. His entire understanding of faith, of existence, of the universe itself, was being unraveled and rebuilt before his eyes. He wanted to question further, but words failed him. He could only stare at the being before him, trembling with awe. The alien lifted a trembling hand and pointed upward, toward the heavens, its gaze unwavering. "He did not belong only to your world, he belongs to every world." His shiver ran through Daniel as tears formed in his eyes. He had believed in Jesus his whole life, but never like this, never on such a scale. The idea that his savior was not confined to earth but revered across the stars filled him with both wonder and humility. The alien's voice softened once more. "He is the reason I survived the journey, the reason I sought you, the reason you were here tonight." The clearing seemed brighter, though no new light had entered it. Was as though the truth itself radiated from the words spoken. Daniel bowed his head, overcome, unable to contain the weight of revelation. It said that Jesus was not only known on earth, but throughout the universe, as a bringer of truth and light. Daniel sat frozen, his mind unraveling, as he tried to grasp the enormity of those words. The being before him was not from his planet, not from his people, and yet it spoke of the same teacher, the same savior he had known since childhood. The idea was so vast it made him dizzy, and yet in his heart he felt a strange certainty that it was truth. The alien's voice carried a rhythm like waves on a shore, each word slow and deliberate, as if it wanted him to understand completely. It spoke of countless civilizations across galaxies who whispered the name of Jesus in their own languages, who looked to the same light for guidance, who sought the same hope. The truth had traveled farther than human imagination could stretch, and here was proof lying before him, wounded and yet filled with faith. Daniel pressed a hand to his forehead, his chest tight with emotion. "How can this be?" he whispered, barely able to form the question. The alien's gaze did not falter, and its reply was steady, as though it had answered this question countless times across countless worlds. "The light cannot be contained. The one you call Jesus is life itself. Wherever there is breath, there is his presence." The man felt a tear slide down his cheek. He had believed, but only within the narrow scope of his own world. He had prayed, but only within the limits of his own understanding. Now those boundaries were shattering before him. His prayers, his songs, his faith had always reached beyond the skies, but now he understood. They had truly been heard, in ways he could never have imagined. The alien shifted slightly, its breathing still shallow but its voice steady. You are not alone in your faith. Earth is not isolated in its hope. Across galaxies, across distances so vast that human minds cannot count, there are beings who honor him, who follow his teaching of love, sacrifice, and light. The words struck Daniel like thunder, yet instead of fear they filled him with awe. He was not simply part of a small story confined to one world. He was part of a truth that spanned the stars. The forest air seemed to hum with energy, as if creation itself was responding to the words spoken. Daniel placed his hand gently on the alien's glowing arm and whispered, "Tell me more, please. Tell me all you can." The alien's lips curved faintly again, not in a smile exactly, but in a gesture of peace. It blinked slowly and spoke with certainty. "He came to you as flesh and blood. He came to others in ways you would not understand. But always his message was the same. Love one another as he has loved youth." Man's heart raced faster than ever. His soul burned with questions, yet at the same time he felt a profound stillness within him, as though the answers had already been planted there. Long ago he was beginning to understand what it meant that this message was bigger than Earth, bigger than humanity. It was eternal, it was universal, it was unshakable. He listened in awe, unable to comprehend how this being from the stars could know the same Savior he worshipped. His heart pounded so violently he thought it might burst, the night around him fading into silence as every part of his being clung to the words spilling from the alien. The stars overhead no longer seemed cold and distant. They felt alive, connected to the very truth that was now unfolding before him. The alien's voice grew softer, yet deeper, resonating not just in the clearing but within his very soul. It spoke of journeys through endless space, of civilizations older than humankind that had whispered the same prayers and sung the same praises. It spoke of worlds torn by darkness yet healed by the name of Jesus, of people scattered across galaxies who found hope in the same eternal light. Daniel's mind could not stretch wide enough to imagine such vastness, and yet every word felt true, undeniable, and piercing. He pressed his palm against the dirt to steady himself, his knees weak, his chest trembling. He whispered again, as if begging for clarity. "Why me? Why are you telling me this?" The alien blinked slowly, its gaze steady and full of something beyond emotion, something eternal. It raised its trembling hand and touched the ground between them, as if marking the earth. Then it answered with words that burned into his spirit. "Because you chose compassion when you could have chosen fear." The sentence struck him harder than anything else. He realized it was not an accident, not chance, that he had found this being. His choice to stay, to offer water, to kneel in the dirt beside a wounded stranger, had opened a door to a truth greater than anything he had ever dreamed. His heart swelled with humility and shame and wonder all at once. The alien's glow pulsed faintly in rhythm with its words. Each pulse sent warmth through the clearing as it continued. The message must be carried forward, not just on earth but in every heart that hears it. The love of Jesus is not bound by distance nor by form. It flows wherever life exists. Daniel shivered as though the very air was charged with unseen power. The forest seemed brighter, the stars above sharper, the night transformed into a cathedral without walls. He wanted to ask more, yet words slipped away. His throat tightened, his eyes blurred with tears. He had prayed for guidance in his life many times, yet nothing had prepared him for this moment. A dying alien from the stars was confirming the greatest truth he had ever believed and magnifying it beyond all limits. His breath shook as he whispered again, "I will not forget, I will carry this." The alien looked at him with something close to peace, its gaze calm, its breathing shallow but steady in its eyes. Daniel saw not only survival but purpose, as though its journey had been worth every wound, simply to deliver this revelation to him. The man clasped the alien's hand gently, his voice firm, despite the trembling. "I will honor this, I promise." In that moment he realized the message of love and hope was far greater than humanity ever imagined, reaching beyond the stars. His heart thundered as the truth settled deep within him, and every fear he had carried seemed to vanish like mist in the morning light. The clearing was no longer just a patch of forest. It felt like holy ground touched by something eternal. The alien's glow dimmed, but its eyes never left his. The gaze held no fear, no regret, only peace, as though it had completed its mission. The faint golden light beneath its skin flickered like the final embers of a fire, yet, instead of sorrow, Daniel felt reverence. He tightened his grip on the creature's hand, whispering words he could barely form. "You brought me truth. You showed me what faith really means above them." The stars shimmered brighter than he had ever seen. Some seemed to pulse in rhythm with the alien's fading glow, and for a fleeting moment, Daniel thought he saw patterns forming constellations, shifting into shapes of light that resembled crosses stretching across the heavens. He blinked hard, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks, but deep inside he knew this was not chance, it was confirmation. Alien's lips moved once more, its voice a whisper like wind passing through leaves. Remember love, remember light, tell them. He is not only yours, he is for all. Daniel leaned closer, desperate to catch every word, his tears falling freely onto the ground. The weight of the message burned into his heart, sealing itself in a place that could never be erased. The creature's body relaxed its glow, fading to a faint shimmer. Yet its eyes remained fixed on him, until the very last breath. A silence filled the clearing, but it was not empty, it was sacred. Daniel bowed his head, his soul trembling with both grief and awe. He had held the hand of a being from the stars, and in doing so had touched a truth larger than the universe itself. When he finally lifted his gaze, the night sky seemed alive with brilliance. The stars no longer distant cold specks, but radiant beacons whispering the same truth the alien had spoken. He felt as though the entire cosmos had become a cathedral, and he was standing at its altar. He whispered into the stillness, "I will not fail, I will share what you gave me." Slowly, he rose to his feet, his body heavy with exhaustion, yet his spirit aflame with purpose. The forest around him looked unchanged, and yet he knew he would never see it the same way again. Every tree, every star, every breath carried new meaning. The universe was not silent, it was singing, and he had been chosen to hear its song. Daniel walked from the clearing, carrying no proof, no evidence, only the memory of what he had seen and heard. But that memory was enough. It was more than enough. He knew the world would doubt him, mock him, maybe even call him mad, yet he also knew he carried the truth of a love unbound by planets or galaxies, a love that stretched across eternity. And with each step he whispered the same words to himself, words that now belonged not just to him, but to all who lived beneath the stars. Jesus is for all.